everyone, so in this video we are going to talk about explanation structured questions. So if you're struggling with this, do stay tuned all the way to the very end of the video because I'll be talking about common mistakes, how to properly break down the question, as well as some hands-on practice. Okay, so without further ado, let's start. Now, do understand that in examinations, explanation questions can come in various forms. Okay, sometimes it can be very straightforward and it asks you to explain. While sometimes it can be account for, which is pretty common. And of course, we have give reasons for, suggest reasons for, or sometimes suggest how, and of course, justify. Alright, when you encounter questions like this, do understand that they are all explanation questions which require you to tap into your content knowledge to give reasons. Now, as a teacher for so many years, I've came across many different types of answers, and here are some common mistakes that I noticed, and hopefully I can share with you so that you don't make the same mistakes as well. Alright, the first common mistake would be overwriting. Now, so why do students tend to overwrite for explanation questions? Now, there are two common reasons. The first one is because students, when they look at a question, they get overly excited because they've studied for their part, so they decide to regurgitate everything that they have memorized. Now, another reason that I noticed is very common is because the students did not look out for the mark allocation and plan their points according to that. Now, let me explain to you about the importance of mark allocation. Now, typically for explanation questions, we can award around 1 mark for brief explanation points and 2 marks per detailed explanation. So in this case, let's say if you have a 5 marks question given to you, there can be a few permutations that you can play around with to get the full 5 marks. So for instance, the first option would be to write 5 brief points of explanation to get 5 marks. Now in this case, let's say if you have a question such as, explain the risk associated with living in earthquake-prone areas. So you can give 5 sets of brief explanation as to what are the risks that are associated with it. Alternatively, option number 2 would be to write 3 detailed explanations. Of course, it's supposed to worth 6 marks, but this will allow you to get the full 5 marks if you write 3 sets of detailed explanation. Alright, and lastly, you can also choose to write 2 sets of detailed explanation and include 1 valid and reasonable example in your answer. Okay, so that 1 example can be worth 1 mark. So if you think about it, for explanation questions, you can do some simple math and plan your points before you start writing, and this will actually save you a lot of trouble from the overwriting, and of course through this you will have more time for the other questions. Now, the second common mistake that I noticed would be that the students tend to not address or link back to the question demand. Now, let me give you an example. So what we have over here is a question that says, explain the economic benefits of living near volcanic areas. 5 marks in total. So the command word here we have explain. The question demand would be economic benefits. Alright, and of course it's 5 marks in total, so it means that you can have 3 detailed points of explanation. Alternatively, you can have 2 detailed points of explanation followed by 1 valid example. Okay, so if you try to recall what you have learned from the content itself, we do recognize that the benefits will include fertile soil as well as increased tourism. Right? So how then can we effectively link back to the question demand, which is asking about economic benefits? Now notice it's very specific. It says economic. Now, so let's take a look at a possible answer with good links. Alright, so first point we have over here, it says people living near volcanic areas can benefit from the availability of fertile soil for agriculture. Now, typically students will write this down, and yes, it's a valid point that this is a benefit. However, telling me that fertile soil is available does not automatically equate to economic benefit. So how then can we effectively link back to the question demand? Now let's read on. It says agricultural farmers. Now I'm specifying who can benefit, and it says can receive profits from the sale of increased amount of crop yield and saved on the cost of fertilizers. Now by writing this down, I am effectively linking the fertile soils used to the economic benefit to the people living there. Okay, so this is how you effectively draw links to address the question demand. Now, next point, it's similar. So it's about increased number of tourist arrivals, right? So what exactly is the link? We have increased income and job opportunities for the locals who are working within the tourism sector. Now, the last point would be to provide an example that is valid and shows the economic benefit for the locals as well. So here's a quick tip. Always remember, before you end off your point of explanation, ask yourself if you have answered and linked back to the question demand. Now that you know of the common mistakes made by students, here are 4 things you can do from now on whenever you want to break down or unpack explanation questions. So first thing would be to observe command words. Now, why is it so important to observe command words? Now, this is because sometimes in exams, you will not just see a question that says explain something, but sometimes you can encounter a question that says describe and account for something. So in this case, you have to address both describe and account for in your answer to get the full credit. Okay, so always look out for the command words. Alright, next is to ask yourself if you're required to refer or make reference to figures or photographs in the question. Now, this is important because sometimes a question can be phrased in this manner. With reference to figure 1, explain something. Now, when you get a question like this, always remember to use information or statistics or sometimes country names from figure 1 and infuse it into your answer. Now, when you don't do so, you will realize that you will not be able to get the full credit because marks will be reserved for evidence from the figure. So always remember this point. And next, it is to look out for the question demands. Now, why is it important to observe this point? Sometimes in questions, you will notice that they have more than one question demand that you have to address, and always remember to link it back. And last but not least, I've mentioned this under common mistakes. Always look out for the mark allocation. Now, this is very important because it allows you to plan the number of points to include in your answer. So do take note that for most of the time, for explanation questions, you can be awarded about 2 marks per detailed explanation and 1 mark for a brief explanation, as well as 1 mark for an example that's relevant to this question. So plan your points wisely so that you don't have to overspend too much time answering this question and leaving more time for the other questions for this paper. Alright, however, we have an exception. Now, in this case, if the question is asking you about processes, such as, let's say you have a question that asks, explain the formation of the southwest monsoon winds. Now, if you get a question like this, always remember that there's 1 mark per explanation of the entire process. Alright, so hopefully you found this video useful in helping you better understand how to answer explanation type of questions. And if you have any more questions, do feel free to put them down in the comments below, or you can DM me on Instagram, and we'll see each other in the next video where I cover another question type. So till then, stay safe, stay sane. Yeah, goodbye.